celebrate Mother's Day at a quiet restaurant when a waiter slipped a note onto my table as if by accident. "Don't drink the wine your daughter served." I froze. My fingers went numb. Without drawing attention, I calmly switched my glass with hers. 10 minutes later, she started screaming. "I'm really glad you're here. Stay with my story until the end and tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. I love seeing how far my stories travel." The deep burgundy tablecloth felt soft beneath my fingertips as I tried to steady my nerves, waiting for Jolie to return from the restroom. Romano's had always been our place, the same corner booth where we'd celebrated her graduation, her first job, every milestone. But tonight, this Mother's Day, something felt off, a tension in the air, like the universe was holding its breath. "Mom, you look beautiful tonight," Jolie had said when she picked me up. Sweet words. But her smile didn't reach her eyes. At 61, I'd learned to read my daughter better than she realized. The tightness in her shoulders, the forced laugh, something wasn't right. The restaurant around me buzzed gently with other families celebrating, clinking glasses, sharing meals. The warm smell of garlic and wine drifted through the air. And then there was Marcus, the waiter, hovering, watching. His name tag flashed every time he nervously adjusted something on our table. Twice he refilled our water. 3 times he straightened the silverware. I couldn't tell if he was overly polite or deeply troubled. When Jolie excused herself to fix her makeup, I didn't think much of it. She had always been particular about appearances, but the moment she left, an uneasy feeling began to take shape in my stomach. Marcus appeared beside me so silently I jumped. His hands trembled as he pretended to adjust the wine glasses, and when our eyes met, I saw it fear. "Excuse me, ma'am," he whispered. His voice barely carried above the soft music. He glanced toward the restroom, then back at me. "I need to tell you something." Before I could speak, he slipped a small piece of folded paper beneath my bread plate, then hurried away like he hadn't done a thing. My pulse pounded in my ears. I unfolded the note with shaking fingers. "Don't drink the wine your daughter poured. I know what she put in it." The world tilted. I reread it, praying I had misunderstood. But the message stayed the same, unmistakable and terrifying. The wine glass in front of me, a Merlot Jolie had insisted on ordering, just for me, suddenly looked like a threat. I forced myself to breathe slowly, to keep my expression calm. Jolie would be back any second. I replayed the evening in my mind. She ordered the wine. She insisted on serving it. She hadn't touched her own glass, not once. The sharp click of heels signaled her return. I slipped the note into my purse and fixed a smile on my face. "Sorry, Mom. Long line," she said, sliding into the booth. Her eyes went straight to the untouched wine. "You haven't tried it yet. I spent time choosing something special." There it was, that gentle push wrapped in sweetness. "I was waiting for you," I said evenly. "You know I like to toast together." Jolie laughed softly, but the sound rang hollow. "Always the proper lady. Come on, let's toast." She lifted her own glass. Now I noticed, mine had far more wine in it. I raised my glass, though my hand trembled faintly. "What shall we toast to?" "To mothers and daughters," she said, her gaze sharpening, "to bonds that can never be broken." The glasses touched with a soft clink, and then an idea formed. "Actually," I said lightly, "I forgot to wash my hands. That restroom door looked questionable." I stood. Jolie's smile faltered. "Oh, Mom, you and your hygiene rules." "Just a moment," I said, heading toward the restroom. But instead of going in, I slipped behind a decorative column. From there, I could see our table without being noticed. What I saw stole the air from my lungs. Jolie glanced around, then switched the wine glasses back, putting the original special glass in front of me again. Then she took the tiniest sip, barely touching it to her lips. Immediately she grimaced and reached for her water. My knees nearly gave out. My daughter, my child, the baby I'd held, the girl I'd raised, loved, and supported for 33 years, had done something to my drink. And she planned for me to return and finish it without question. Why? What could she possibly want that badly? I forced myself back to the table, every step heavier than the last. Jolie greeted me with a bright, too-wide smile. "Feel better?" she asked. "Yes," I said softly as I sat down, my voice calm despite the storm inside me. The wine glass sat in front of me like a warning I couldn't look away from. "Thank you for waiting," Jolie said gently. "Of course," I replied. "Now, let's enjoy our toast properly." I lifted the glass just enough for her to believe I was about to drink. Her expression shifted, something bright, eager, almost impatient. It twisted my stomach. At the last second, I pretended to lose my balance, bumping the table. Oh, how clumsy of me. The wine swirled dangerously close to the rim but didn't spill. "Mom, are you okay?" Jolie asked. Her concern looked real. But there it was, a flicker of irritation before she hid it behind a smile. "I'm fine. Just a little lightheaded," I said calmly. "Maybe I should eat something first before drinking on an empty stomach." Her smile tightened. "Of course, but just one little sip won't hurt. It really is such a lovely wine." The pressure was soft, gentle, wrapped in sweetness, but constant. Every few minutes she found a new reason to bring up the wine. When the appetizers arrived, she suggested it would pair perfectly. When I commented on the beautiful ambiance, she said a sip would help me relax. When I praised the food, she insisted wine would elevate the flavors. But I wasn't drinking that wine. Not while Marcus stood across the restaurant, watching with growing worry. Not while Jolie became more restless each time she realized I remained awake and aware. While waiting for our entrees, I excused myself again. This time I actually went to the restroom. I needed more than distance. I needed time to breathe. Inside the stall, the fear hit me full force. My daughter, my own child, had tried to tamper with my drink. The question that echoed in my mind was simple, impossible, and heartbreaking. Why? When I returned to the table, Jolie was hunched over her phone, typing frantically. The tap-tap-tap of her perfect nails sounded like tiny alarms, and the moment she spotted me, the phone vanished into her purse. "Everything all right, sweetheart?" I asked as I sat down. "Oh, you know," she said with a dry laugh. "Work stuff. They never leave you alone, even on Mother's Day." But I knew she hadn't been working. Not for months. She'd told me she was taking time off, but I suspected it was because of that downsizing she'd once mentioned, carelessly, almost accidentally. Another lie in the growing tangle of this strange, terrifying evening. Our entrees arrived, and Marcus served them personally. No assistant, no junior staff, just him. His hands were steadier now, but his eyes kept darting toward the wine glass like it was a ticking clock. "This looks wonderful," I said, cutting into my salmon. "You know, I think I'll wait on the wine until after I finish eating. This fish is so delicate, don't want anything to overpower it." Jolie's fork froze halfway to her mouth. "Mom, you're being silly. Wine enhances the meal. That's the whole point." "I know, honey," I replied softly, "but my stomach's been a little sensitive lately. Better to ease into things." The lie flowed out too easily, and I hated how natural it felt lying to my own daughter, like honesty was suddenly a risk I couldn't afford. "You never mentioned stomach problems before?" she said sharply. "Well," I responded with a gentle shrug, "I don't want to worry you with every little ache. You have enough on your plate." As we ate, I studied her face under the warm candlelight. When had those faint stress lines formed around her eyes? When had her smile become something she performed rather than felt? It hit me then, sickening and cold. I had been seeing what I wanted to see, not the truth. The successful daughter, the independent adult, the loving girl I had raised. All of it might have been an image she'd carefully held together for years. "You seem tense tonight, Jolie," I said softly. "Is everything really okay?" She set her fork down and reached across the table to hold my hand. Her palm was damp. "I'm fine, Mom," she said, voice shaky. "Just tired, and maybe a little emotional. You know how Mother's Day gets to me." She was always sentimental about holidays, but this wasn't tenderness. This was something heavier, deeper, almost desperate. I appreciate you bringing me here, I added. I know Romanos isn't cheap. Nothing is too expensive for my mother, she said quickly, almost too quickly. You deserve to be spoiled. You've done so much for me. That emphasis, those words felt rehearsed, like she was reciting lines she'd practiced. As dinner continued, her behavior only grew more erratic. She checked her phone repeatedly, apologizing each time but doing it again minutes later. Her conversation bounced around, never landing on anything real, and every few minutes, like a drumbeat, she circled back to the wine. Are you sure you don't want even a tiny sip? This bottle is incredible. I feel awful you're not enjoying it. Maybe we should pick a different wine, something lighter? No matter what angle she tried, the goal was the same. But I held firm. And with every minute that passed, Jolie's tension grew sharper. Her jaw tightened whenever she thought I wasn't watching. Her eyes darted to the glass again and again, like it held all her hopes and all her panic. Something was coming. Something she didn't want me to be conscious for. Her fingers drummed against the table in a jittery rhythm, a nervous little beat that made me want to reach across and still her hand. And when she excused herself to take a quick call, that was when I realized I couldn't keep pretending nothing was wrong. The second she stepped outside, I caught Marcus's eye and motioned him over. "Thank you," I whispered urgently. "For the warning, but how did you know?" Marcus's expression tightened, his voice low and serious. "I work part-time at Mitchell's Pharmacy downtown. Yesterday, your daughter came in asking about sleep aids. She said her mother," he gave me a weighted glance, "was having trouble sleeping and needed something strong." A chill crept up my spine. "She kept pressing me for something even stronger than the over-the-counter options," he continued. "When she wouldn't take no for an answer, I got worried. And then tonight, I saw her pouring your wine while you weren't looking. My stomach dropped." I swallowed hard. "Did she buy anything?" "I couldn't sell her anything without a prescription," he said quietly. "But there are other ways to get that kind of stuff." His eyes drifted toward the door where Jolie had disappeared. "Ma'am, if something is in that wine, you need to be very careful." "I haven't touched it," I said, "but I need to know what she's planning." Marcus nodded. "Do you want me to call someone? The police?" I considered it, but something inside me whispered, "Not yet. Not until I understand what's really happening." "Then be careful," he said. "If you need help, signal me." When Jolie returned, her cheeks were flushed, her eyes far too bright with panic. "Sorry about that," she said quickly. "Crisis at work." "I thought you said you weren't working right now," I said softly. She froze for a heartbeat. "Oh, consulting." "Freelance. Very irregular?" Another lie. They were stacking up so fast I could barely keep track. "Well," I said calmly, "I hope they're paying you well for interrupting your Mother's Day dinner." "They are." Her smile was tight. "Very well." As we finished eating, I made the most frightening decision of the night. I was going to switch the glasses again and see what happened when Jolie tasted what she'd meant for me. "I think I'll visit the restroom one more time before we go," I announced casually. Instead of entering the restroom, I slipped behind the same column as before. Almost immediately, Jolie pulled out her phone and made another frantic call. "It's not working," she hissed. "She won't drink it." A pause. What am I supposed to do now? Another pause. Longer this time. "I can't force it down her throat," she snapped quietly. "This was supposed to be subtle." She listened again, her breathing quickening. "Fine. But if this doesn't work, I'm done. I can't keep doing this." When she hung up, she dropped her face into her hands. For a moment, just a moment, she looked like the little girl who used to run to me when she scraped her knees. But when she lifted her head again, her expression had hardened into something I didn't recognize. I took a deep breath and made my move. Keeping low, I crept toward our table. Her phone sat on the table, her attention fixed solely on whatever text she was typing. With one swift motion, I switched the wine glasses back to their original places. By the time I reappeared from the restroom hallway, everything looked untouched. "Ready for dessert?" Jolie asked, her voice too cheery, too bright. Actually, I said with a calm smile, I think I'm finally ready for that wine. You've been so patient. Her face lit up with genuine relief. Oh, wonderful. I knew you'd like it once you tried it. I lifted her glass, the one she meant for me, to the best daughter a mother could ask for. We clinked glasses. Jolie took a generous sip. She didn't notice she had just swallowed her own trap. I only pretended to sip, letting barely a drop touch my lips. Within minutes, I saw it begin. Her eyelids fluttered, her posture slumped. She had to blink several times just to focus. "Mom," she murmured slowly, "I feel strange." "Strange how, sweetheart?" I asked gently. "Dizzy, like I can't." Her fingers gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white. "Something's wrong. Something's really wrong." As I watched the effects hit her, I felt no triumph, only a crushing sadness. Whatever had driven her to this, whatever she'd planned, it was coming apart in the worst possible way. "I think I need some air," she mumbled, trying to push herself to her feet. She swayed violently, and I grabbed her arm. "Here, honey, sit down. Maybe you're getting sick." "No, this isn't." She shook her head weakly. "Mom, I think someone put something in my drink." The irony nearly broke me. "That's impossible, sweetheart," I said softly. "You poured the wine yourself." "But I feel—" Her voice trailed off as the room seemed to tilt around her. I guided her carefully back into her seat, my mind racing. How long until the drug fully kicked in? How long until she understood what had happened? And what plan, what terrifying plan was she trying to carry out? "Just stay still and breathe," I whispered. Marcus approached the moment I signaled him. His concern looked real, because it was. "Is everything all right?" he asked quietly. "Should I call someone?" "I think my daughter may be having an allergic reaction to something," I said carefully, choosing every word with purpose. "Could you bring us some water and maybe somewhere quiet where she can rest?" I asked softly. Marcus nodded immediately. "We have a private dining room in the back. Very quiet. Follow me." As he led us through the restaurant, I kept a firm hold on Jolie's arm. Her steps were uneven, her balance fading fast. She murmured under her breath broken pieces of sentences, drifting away before they reached clarity. Once we reached the small, secluded room, Jolie slumped into a chair, pale and trembling. And then her phone rang. She fumbled for it clumsily, dropping it twice before finally pressing it to her ear. Hello?" she slurred. Even from across the table, I could hear the sharp, agitated voice of a man on the other end, though I couldn't make out the exact words. I can't think straight," Jolie whispered, her words thick and slow. "Something went wrong. I feel terrible." The voice grew louder, angrier. Jolie's face twisted and tears spilled down her cheeks. "I did exactly what you said," she sobbed. "I put it in her wine just like we planned, but she wouldn't drink it. And now I feel like I'm dying." My heart dropped. There it was. The confession I'd feared. But the man wasn't finished. His tone sharpened, cutting through Jolie's weakening composure. "No, I can't get her to sign anything now," Jolie cried. "I can barely hold the phone and she's totally alert." Another pause. Then Jolie's voice shot up in panic. "I'm not making excuses. I swear something went wrong." She was crying openly now, mascara streaking down her face. "Please, just come get me. I think I'm having a bad reaction. What if something happens?" Whoever was on the other end must have hung up, because Jolie stared at the phone for several seconds before it slipped from her hand and clattered onto the table. She buried her face in her palms and sobbed. "Jolie," I said quietly, forcing my voice to remain steady, despite the hurricane inside me. "What were you trying to get me to sign?" She looked up, eyes glassy with tears. For one fleeting moment, I saw my daughter as she'd been so many years ago, scared, overwhelmed, needing help. But almost instantly, a hard, desperate look took over. Even in her drugged state, she tried to rebuild her walls. I don't know what you're talking about," she muttered. You just told someone you couldn't get me to sign something, I said gently. What was it? She shook her head too quickly, the motion overwhelming her. You're imagining things. I never said that. But the sedative was taking hold fast. Her eyelids sagged, her posture folded. Her fight was dissolving right in front of me. Sweetheart, I murmured, whatever trouble you're in, we can solve it. But I need to know what's happening. For a moment, I truly believed she might tell me, but then her phone rang again. I was close enough now to hear every word. Are you completely incompetent? The man snapped. How hard is it to get an older woman to drink a glass of wine? Don't call my mother that, Jolie mumbled weakly, showing a flicker of the protective daughter she used to be. Your mother is the least of your problems, the man hissed. Do you know how much money is riding on this? Do you know how deep you'll be if this doesn't work? I know, Jolie whispered. I know, but something went wrong. I think someone switched the glasses or... That's impossible, he interrupted. Stop making excuses. You're choking because you're weak. I watched my daughter's face crumble under the verbal assault. Whoever this man was, his control over her was absolute. Please, she begged. I can't do this anymore. I feel so sick. You'll feel a lot worse when Tony's people come looking for their money. $60,000 doesn't just disappear, Jolie, and neither will you if you don't get this done. $60,000. The number slammed into me like a punch. What on earth had my daughter gotten herself into? Can't we wait? Jolie whimpered. Do it another time, when I'm better. There is no other time, the man snapped. The inheritance paperwork expires next week. If you don't get her signature before that, the money goes into probate and we lose everything. Inheritance paperwork. My mind reeled. What inheritance? From who? I hadn't received any notice. Nothing. No letter, no email, no call. But Jolie clearly knew something I didn't. What if she dies? Jolie whispered, voice wobbling. What if I gave her too much? She's not going to die from a couple of sleeping pills, the man replied coldly. She'll just be confused, cooperative. Exactly what we need for her to sign the papers. My stomach turned. They had planned to drug me until I was docile enough to sign legal documents I knew nothing about. I can't think straight, Jolie moaned. Everything's spinning. That's because you're weak, the man snapped. Just like your mother. At least she has enough money to make up for it. Don't talk about her like that, Jolie slurred, her voice breaking. Even now, even after everything, some part of her still fought for me. She's a good person. She doesn't deserve this. The man laughed, humorless and cruel. Good people don't rack up $60,000 in gambling debt, sweetheart. Good people don't steal from their employers. Good people don't get mixed up with loan sharks. Each revelation struck me harder than the last. Gambling debt, stolen money, loan collectors. My successful, independent daughter, the one I believed had her life together, was none of those things. Instead, she was a frightened young woman drowning in choices she couldn't undo, so overwhelmed that drugging her own mother had somehow become a solution in her mind. I want to stop, Jolie whispered into the phone. I want to go home. You can go home when you get the job done, the man snapped. Not before. Then the line went dead. Jolie stared at the phone like it had betrayed her. Then she looked up and I saw the exact moment she realized I'd heard everything. Mom, she said, her voice cracking. I can explain. But the sedative took her all at once. Her eyes rolled back and she collapsed forward onto the table, unconscious. The silence in the room felt heavy and unreal. My daughter, my child, was many things I never imagined. Desperately in debt, manipulated and used. Someone had convinced her that harming me was the only way out, and all for an inheritance I didn't even know existed. I stared at her still form, my hands shaking, then pulled out my phone and dialed the only person I trusted without hesitation. Maggie, I whispered when she answered. I need help. Margaret arrived at Romanos in under 20 minutes, breathless, hair slightly disheveled, eyes sharp with worry. A retired nurse with 30 years of experience, she rushed to Jolie's side the moment she stepped into the private dining room. Dear God, Colleen, what happened? She demanded, feeling Jolie's pulse with steady, practiced hands. She drugged herself by accident, I said softly. She meant to drug me. Margaret's hand froze mid-movement. What? I told her everything, the note from Marcus, the switched glasses, the phone calls, the inheritance scheme. With every detail, her expression tightened further. We need to take her to the hospital, she said firmly. We don't know what she took or how her body will react. She said it was just sleeping pills, I murmured. A couple of them. A couple can still be dangerous, especially with alcohol involved. Margaret gently lifted Jolie's eyelid, checking her pupil. Her breathing is stable, but we shouldn't risk anything. Marcus appeared in the doorway, worry etched on his face. How is she? We're taking her to get medical attention, I told him. And thank you. You probably saved my life. He gave a solemn nod. I've seen what those pills can do when people misuse them. She seemed desperate when she came into the pharmacy. I almost called social services, but I wasn't sure. I'm glad you're safe. As Margaret and I guided Jolie toward the car, she stirred. Her eyes fluttered, unfocused and glassy. Mom, she mumbled weakly. What's happening? We're taking you to get help, sweetheart. No, she slurred, trying feebly to pull away. Can't go to hospital. They'll ask questions. What kind of questions? I asked gently. She leaned her head against the car window, struggling to stay conscious. Then, in a voice barely above a breath, she whispered, about the money I took. At the emergency room, I stayed by her side as the medical team worked. A calm, kind doctor around my age checked her vitals and reviewed the tests. She ingested a strong sedative, the doctor explained, but she isn't in immediate danger. She'll sleep it off, but we'll monitor her for several hours. Is there any history of substance use we should be aware of? The question hit me like a slap. No, I whispered. I had no idea. The doctor nodded gently. Often, families are the last to know. People hide things when they're ashamed or afraid. It isn't your fault. As we waited for Jolie to wake up, I reached for answers anywhere I could find them. There was one person I thought might know the truth, her ex-boyfriend, David. They'd dated for 2 years before breaking up 6 months ago. Jolie had always brushed off the breakup, but I'd always had a soft spot for him. When he answered, he sounded surprised. Mrs. Morrison, is everything okay? David, I need to ask you something, I said quietly. And I need absolute honesty. Did Jolie have a gambling problem when you were together? The silence that followed was long and heavy. Finally, softly, he answered. I tried to help her, he said. I really did. But she wouldn't admit she had a problem. She kept insisting she just needed one big win to fix everything. How bad was it? I asked, dread curling in my chest. Bad, he said. She drained her savings, borrowed from friends, borrowed from co-workers, and one night, I caught her going through my wallet looking for cash. My heart clenched. Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to, he said, voice trembling with regret, but she begged me. She said you'd be so disappointed that it would break you. She promised she'd get help. She didn't, I whispered. No, he said. And when I tried to set up an intervention with her friends, she cut me off completely. She said we were trying to control her. By the time Jolie was awake enough to hold a real conversation, it was close to midnight. Margaret had gone home promising she'd be back at dawn, leaving me alone in the sterile quiet of the hospital room with my daughter. How are you feeling? I asked softly, pulling my chair closer to her bed. Like I got hit by a truck, she muttered. She still wouldn't meet my eyes. Mom, about tonight. I heard your phone calls, Jolie. All of them. Her face crumpled instantly. I never wanted you to find out like this. How did you want me to find out? I asked calmly. By waking up tomorrow after signing away money I didn't even know existed? You weren't supposed to wake up confused, she whispered. The pills were just supposed to make you relaxed, agreeable, like you'd had a few glasses of wine. And then what? I asked. What exactly was I supposed to sign? Jolie was silent for so long I thought she'd drifted off again. Then, in a barely there voice, she said, Great Aunt Millicent's inheritance. The lawyer called last month. She left you $200,000. The air left my lungs. 200,000? The paperwork expires next week, she murmured. If you didn't claim it, it would have gone to charity. So you decided to claim it for me, I said, without my knowledge. I was going to tell you afterward, she cried. I was going to say I handled everything as a gift. I wasn't going to keep all of it, just enough to pay off my debts. $60,000 worth of debt, I said. She flinched. You heard that too? I heard everything, Jolie. The gambling, the money you took, the people you owe. I never stole anything, she said quickly. That's not true. I mean, it wasn't supposed to be stealing. Then where did the $60,000 come from? Her face twisted, and she broke down completely. I borrowed it from the company's petty cash account, she sobbed. Just temporarily. I thought I'd win it back with this sure thing bet, but the bet wasn't sure. And then I tried again, and it just kept getting worse. How long has this been happening? I whispered. 2 years. Maybe 3. I don't even know. When you're always chasing the next bet, time gets blurry. I sank back in my chair, stunned. 3 years of lies, 3 years of watching her decline without understanding why. Who was the man on the phone? I asked. The one ordering you around? His name is Rick, she whispered. He works for the people I owe money to. He said if I could get your inheritance, we could work out a payment plan. If not, she shuddered, they don't make idle threats, Mom. So you decided to drug your mother. I didn't want to, she cried. Do you think I wanted to become someone who could do that? I hate myself for even thinking about it. But the alternative, what they said they'd do, it scared me more. There are other ways, I said gently. Help exists. Rehab exists. Bankruptcy, legal options. Not this kind of debt, she whispered. Not with these people. I looked at her under the harsh fluorescent lights. She was thinner than I remembered. Her eyes were shadowed, her cheeks hollow. How had I missed this pain? The inheritance, I finally said. Is it real? She nodded miserably. The lawyer's name is Patricia Hendress. She's been trying to reach you for weeks. I intercepted the calls and the letters. You what? I told her I was your caregiver, Jolie whispered, that you had cognitive issues. You told a lawyer I was mentally incompetent? It was Rick's idea, she said quickly. He said it would make the paperwork easier if there were questions. Each confession was a fresh wound. She hadn't just planned to drug me, she had begun erasing my autonomy. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I am so sorry. I looked at her, broken, frightened, ashamed, and something in me shifted. Yes, I was furious. Yes, my heart was cracked open. But under all of that, she was still my daughter. Tell me about Rick, I said softly. All of it. Jolie was discharged the next morning with instructions to rest. I didn't take her to her apartment. I brought her home. After what had happened, I wasn't letting her out of my sight. Mom, you don't understand, she said weakly as I helped her upstairs. Rick expects an update today. If I don't answer, then don't answer, I said. Let me handle this. You can't handle this, she whispered. These are not rational people. I settled her into the guest room with water and 2 aspirin. Start from the beginning, I said. Tell me how you met Rick. Jolie pulled the blanket up to her chin, her voice soft and drained. I met him at the casino downtown, the big one on 5th Street. I'd been going for a few months. Slots, blackjack, small stuff. I sat beside her bed. Go on. One night I lost about $300. That was my grocery money. I was at the bar trying not to cry when this man sat next to me. Rick. She swallowed hard. He was older, well-dressed, confident. He bought me a drink, said he could tell I was smart, just unlucky. Said he knew ways to turn things around if I was willing to think bigger than penny slots. Her voice sounded hollow, detached. He told me about private poker games, high stakes. The buy-in was $5,000. I closed my eyes, already knowing the end of the story. I told him I didn't have that kind of money, she continued. He said that was fine. He'd front it. I could pay him back when I won. She paused, tears gathering again. And when you didn't win? He said it was beginner's luck, that the next game would be different. He kept fronting me money, and I kept losing. Before I knew it, I owed him $15,000. But you told Rick you owed $60, I said quietly. She looked away, shame flooding her face. That wasn't all, she whispered. Not even close. Jolie's face turned crimson with shame. The $15,000 was just what I owed Rick, she whispered. But he introduced me to other people, other games, bigger stakes, bigger losses, and when I couldn't pay them, Rick said he'd consolidate my debt, buy them out, and work with me directly. With interest? I asked, though dread already curled in my chest. She swallowed. 20%. A month. I nearly felt sick. That's not a payment plan, Jolie. That's predatory. That's illegal. I know, she said, voice cracking. I know now, but back then, I was in full panic mode. Anything that gave me a little breathing room sounded like a good idea. And that's when you started taking money from your employer. She nodded miserably. Just a little at first. The company was doing great, and I thought I'd put it back before anyone noticed. But the deeper I got with Rick, the more I needed, and the harder it became to stop. How much did you take? I asked quietly. Her answer nearly knocked the air from my lungs. 47,000, she whispered. Over 18 months. I leaned back, overwhelmed. Jolie, that's embezzlement. That's a felony. Her voice rose, shaking. Don't you think I know that? Every morning I wake up terrified they'll discover it and call the police, but I was more terrified of what Rick would do if I didn't pay him. What exactly did he threaten? At first he just hinted at consequences, but as the debt grew, she pulled the blanket up to her chin. He started showing me pictures, people who didn't pay, people who got hurt, a woman whose car was burned. I didn't want to end up like that. Did you report it to the police? And say what? She asked hollowly. That I'm in debt to a man like Rick because I'm a gambling addict who stole from her employer? They wouldn't go after him, they'd arrest me. She wasn't wrong, but there had to be something we could do. What about your employer? Do they know the money is missing? Not yet. I've covered my tracks. But there's an annual audit in 6 weeks. 6 weeks, I murmured. That's not much time, but it's something. And Rick knows about the audit, she added. I told him when he started demanding more money. That's when he came up with the inheritance plan. Wait, I said slowly. How did he even know about the inheritance? Jolie stiffened, eyes dropping. I told him, she admitted. Last year, when Aunt Millicent passed, I mentioned how she liked you best, how she was comfortable financially. I didn't mean anything by it, but Rick remembers everything. My chest tightened. So when the lawyer called about the inheritance? Rick told me to intercept the calls and letters, she whispered. And I did. I found out exactly how much it was. $200,000. She wiped at her face. He said it was perfect. Enough to pay off my debt, return what I took from the company, and still leave me with something to rebuild my life. You'd think you'd inherited maybe $50,000. You'd never know the difference. The casual way she said it burned. So I'd be grateful, I said quietly. For a fraction of what was actually mine. She nodded helplessly. I know how it sounds. I know, but I was desperate, and I really thought I could pay you back someday, when things got better. And when was that supposed to happen, Jolie? When were you going to stop pretending everything was fine? Tears slid silently down her cheeks. I don't know. I kept thinking I'd get one big win, or that Rick would just disappear if I ignored him. Well, he's definitely not disappearing, I said grimly, and we need a plan before he escalates. As if summoned, Jolie's phone buzzed on the nightstand. Her face drained of color. What does it say? I asked. She held the screen up with trembling hands. Time's up. Meet me at the usual place tonight at 8 p.m. Come alone and bring good news, or our arrangement becomes much less friendly. Where's the usual place? I asked. The parking garage behind the casino, she whispered. 3rd floor, northwest corner. I stood abruptly, adrenaline kicking in. You're not going, Jolie said, panic rising. Mom, you can't. I have to, I said. If I don't go, and if you do go, I countered, you'll walk straight into a trap. You have nothing to give him. No paperwork, no money, he won't take that well. She went ghost white. Oh, God, what am I going to do? We're calling the police, I said. No, Jolie cried. I told you I can't involve them. They'll arrest me. They might arrest you anyway, I said bluntly, if Rick decides to hurt you. She curled into herself, burying her face in the blanket. There has to be another way. I took a deep breath and sat beside her again. There might be, I said slowly, but you're not going to like it. What? She whispered. I'm going to meet with Rick myself. Her head snapped up. Absolutely not. Mom, you don't understand what you're walking into, Jolie whispered, her voice trembling. This man is dangerous. And you're my daughter, I said firmly. Dangerous or not, I'm not letting him hurt you. But what could you possibly offer him? What would you even say? I thought about the lawyer's number Jolie had scribbled down in panic, about the inheritance I'd never known about the $200,000 that could untangle at least part of this nightmare. I'm going to offer him exactly what he thinks he wants, I said. The inheritance, at least enough to settle your debts and make him go away. Jolie pushed herself upright, her eyes wide with disbelief. You do that? She whispered. After everything I've done? You're my daughter, I said. That doesn't change just because you've made terrible choices. But it's your money, she said weakly. You don't owe Rick anything. No, I agreed, but I owe you a chance to fix your life. Tears spilled again, silently. I don't deserve this, she cried. I don't deserve your help. Maybe not, I said gently, but you're getting it anyway. The truth was, I had no idea if my plan would work. Rick might accept the money, or he might see me as leverage for more. But I couldn't sit back and watch Jolie's life collapse without trying. There's one condition, I added, my voice firm. After this is over, you get help, real help, rehab, therapy, whatever it takes. I promise, she whispered. And you confess to your employer, I said. We'll figure out a payment plan, but no more hiding, no more lies. She nodded, terrified but relieved. Okay, yes, I'll do it. And no more contact with Rick or anyone else from that world, I said. If this works, you walk away entirely. I swear, she whispered. I took out my phone and dialed Patricia Hendress, the lawyer handling Aunt Millicent's estate. It was time to claim an inheritance I'd never wanted, just to save the daughter who'd tried to steal it from me. The irony was sharp, but love wasn't always logical. Patricia Hendress turned out to be a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who had grown increasingly concerned about my cognitive difficulties, the ones Jolie had invented to keep her away. When I explained the truth, there was a long pause. Mrs. Morrison, Patricia said carefully, I have to ask, are you calling under duress? Is your daughter forcing you to make this call? No, I said. I'm calling because I finally learned the truth about why you couldn't reach me. When your daughter intercepted all the communications about your inheritance. Yes, I said. She's in serious trouble. She thought this money was her only way out. Another pause, longer, heavier. Mrs. Morrison, I need to be frank. Your daughter's actions could constitute fraud if she represented herself as your caregiver and attempted to access your estate. I understand that, I said quietly. Right now I'm concerned about keeping her safe. That changed everything. I told her about Rick, the threats, the planned meeting that night. Patricia didn't speak for a long moment. Finally, she exhaled. "I can expedite the paperwork," she said. "I can have a cashier's check ready by 5 o'clock. But Mrs. Morrison, you need to involve law enforcement." "I will," I said, "after this is over." "And you're certain you want to use your inheritance this way?" she asked softly. "There are other options." "I'm certain." At 4:30, I picked up a cashier's check for $75,000, enough to pay Rick and replace most of what Jolie had taken from her company. The remaining $125,000 I placed into a trust with Patricia's firm. It wouldn't be released until Jolie completed a rehabilitation program. By 7, I sat alone in the dim parking garage behind the casino. My hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel. Jolie had begged me not to go, had cried, pleaded, even threatened to call the police herself, but my mind was made up. At exactly 8, a black BMW with tinted windows pulled up beside my car. The driver's door opened and Rick stepped out. He looked exactly as Jolie had described, well-dressed, perfectly groomed, confidence radiating off him like cologne, the kind of man who lived on charm and intimidation. He slid into my passenger seat without a word. "You must be Colleen," he said smoothly, as if we were meeting for brunch. "Jolie spoke highly of you." "I doubt that," I said. He laughed, but there was no warmth in the sound. "Fair enough. Now, where is our mutual friend? I was expecting to see her." "She's not coming," I said. "I'm here to settle her debt." His eyebrows rose. "Is that so? And what makes you think you have anything I want?" I reached into my purse and pulled out the cashier's check. He stared at the amount, $75,000, and, for the first time, his polished mask cracked. "75, he murmured. "Not bad. That covers what she owes me, plus interest." "It covers everything," I said. "Take it and leave her alone." Rick smiled slowly, a cold smile, calculated. "It covers what she owes," he said, "but it doesn't cover the inconvenience, the wasted time, the stress of dealing with someone so unreliable." My stomach tightened. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," he said, leaning back casually, "that the price has gone up. 100,000, and we call it even." I'd expected this. Men like Rick always pushed harder when they sensed hesitation. "I don't have 100,000 to give you," I said. "But you have more than 75, he replied smoothly. "Your daughter told me the inheritance was 200. Surely you can spare a bit more to guarantee her safety." "This," I said firmly, "is all I'm willing to pay." Rick's smile turned predatory, like he'd just smelled blood. "Mrs. Morrison, I don't think you understand the situation," Rick said calmly, almost conversationally. "Your daughter owes me money, and when people don't pay what they owe, unpleasant things tend to happen. Sometimes to them, sometimes to the people they care about." "Are you threatening me?" I asked. "I'm explaining reality." I reached into my purse again, but this time not for a check. I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen, and turned it toward him. The recording app glowed brightly. "Reality," I said quietly, "is that you've just threatened an older woman in an attempt to extort money. Reality is that this conversation is being recorded and automatically uploaded to a cloud server my lawyer can access." Rick's expression shifted. His eyes went cold. "You're bluffing." "Try me." We stared at each other in stiff silence, the tension thick and unmoving. Finally, Rick broke eye contact. He reached for the check. 75,000, he murmured. "Fine. But if your daughter ever comes near my business again, the deal is off." "She won't," I said firmly. "She's getting help." Rick snorted. "People like her don't change. They just get better at hiding their problems." "Maybe," I said, "but she's my daughter, and I'm not giving up on her." He pocketed the check, opened the door, and stepped out. "For your sake," he said without looking back, "I hope you're right." He disappeared into the shadows of the garage. I sat in my car for 10 full minutes afterward, letting the adrenaline drain out of my system. My hands shook. My breath trembled. But I'd done it. My daughter was safe from this threat, at least. When I got home, Jolie was pacing the living room, tears streaking down her cheeks. "Mom, thank God you're okay," Did it work? It worked, I said softly. You don't owe him anything anymore. She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing with relief. I can't believe you did that for me, she cried, after everything I put you through. That's what mothers do, sweetheart. But the money, she whispered, it was your inheritance. You should have used it to travel or finally relax. What I wanted, I said, was to know my daughter was safe. She looked up at me, eyes red but hopeful. What happens now? Now, I said firmly, you keep your promises. Tomorrow, we call your employer and schedule a meeting about the missing money. Next week, you check into the rehabilitation program I found. And if they fire me, she whispered, if they charge me, then we deal with that too, together. She hugged herself, trembling. I'm scared, Mom. Good, I said gently. Being scared means you finally understand how serious this is. 6 months later, I sat in the same chair in my living room, watching Jolie pack her belongings to move back into her own apartment. She had completed her rehabilitation program. She had confessed to her employer about the missing money. Against all odds, they'd allowed her to keep her job under a strict repayment plan. She attended recovery meetings 3 times a week. She had been clean for 184 days. Are you sure you're ready to live alone again? I asked. I think so, she said. And if I'm not, I know I can call you. Day or night? Day or night, I agreed. She zipped her suitcase and sat across from me. Mom, I need to say something, and I need you to really hear it. I'm listening. I'm sorry, she whispered. Not just for the lies, or the inheritance, or the pills. I'm sorry for wasting so many years of both our lives on something that was never going to make me happy. Addiction is an illness, I said. You don't apologize for having an illness. But I do need to apologize, she insisted, for how I handled it, for making you pay the price for my choices. I took her hand gently. You paid a price too, I said softly. A bigger one than I ever did. How do you figure that? She asked. I still have my daughter, I said. For a while, I thought I'd lost her completely. She squeezed my hand, tears in her eyes. Different tears this time. Not fear, not shame, but gratitude. You'll never lose me again, Mom. I promise. I smiled, thinking of the trust account Patricia still maintained with the rest of the inheritance. The money was finally being released to me now that Jolie had completed her program, but I'd already made up my mind. Part of it would go to support families dealing with gambling addiction. Aunt Millicent would have approved of that. I love you, sweetheart, I said. I love you too, she whispered. I watched her drive away in her modest used car, one she bought with honest earnings. For the first time in years, I felt something I thought I'd forgotten. Peace. Not the fragile peace of pretending everything is fine, but the solid peace of surviving something terrible and standing on the other side of it. My phone buzzed. A text from Margaret. Dinner tonight? I want to hear how your doctor's appointment went. I smiled. Yes, and I have good news to share, I wrote back. The doctor had confirmed what I'd suspected. Stress had taken a toll, but with care and with the weight finally lifted, I would be just fine. I looked around my quiet home, thinking about how everything had changed since that Mother's Day dinner at Romanos. I'd learned my daughter was capable of deeply hurtful things, but also that love can survive even the worst betrayals. I'd learned I was stronger than I ever knew, and that sometimes the greatest gift we can give someone is the chance to start again. The inheritance was supposed to secure my future. Instead, it gave me something far more precious. It gave me back my daughter, and that was worth every penny. Now I'm curious about you, the listener. What would you do if you were in my place? Have you ever faced something similar? Tell me in the comments below. I read everyone. And on the final screen, you'll see 2 more stories from this channel, both favorites, and both guaranteed to surprise you. Thank you for watching until the end.